Well, good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, depending where you're joining us from. Welcome here to the Launchpad for our live launch coverage of Starlink 4-3. We know there was some confusion on what we were going to be covering here tonight. Originally, it was going to be a double launch feature within 75 minutes of SpaceX Starlink and Arianespace's Soyuz, but Arianespace did announce a 24-hour delay due to some issues with their downrange ship. We're waiting for some more updates on that, but they are hopeful for another attempt of their launch tomorrow. So, one launch here tonight, Starlink 4-3, launching on a Falcon 9 Block 5 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station at Slick 40. But as always, as we get started here on the launch pad, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We're glad that you're here with us for today's launch. Also, later today, watch out for a space flash news update with some exciting news about the future of low Earth orbit space stations. But we are glad to have you here. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the host here at the launch pad. Here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire explorers of tomorrow, and we believe space is better together. So we invite you to be active in the chat. Send in your questions if you have any. Send them in. Just tag us at the Launchpad. That'll help answer those, so we can see those to be able to answer them live. Also, consider joining our Discord. We are hanging out over in live comms there. It's totally free to join. And we got Marcus down there, actually, who is down in Florida. And we're hoping that maybe we'll see some twilight effect from the launch here today. So we hope for some nice clear weather. It sounds like it's good, over 90% go, and a decent temperature for those of you down there in location as well. Emilio's watching from New Jersey, Julian from the UK, we got Houston, Texas, Fargo, North Dakota, Hong Kong, Central Florida. Great to have you all here. Thanks so much for being here. We are expecting SpaceX to go live in just a couple of minutes, and of course, the moment they do that, we'll patch them in and have that uninterrupted coverage to hear the status updates of today's rocket. We do have mission control audio patched in at this time, though, so if for any reason they say anything, we should be able to hear that update. Liftoff time currently scheduled for 8:12 Eastern or 6:12 Eastern, so not too long from now. Today's mission launching on Falcon 9 Block 5 booster 1060-9, so the 9th flight of this booster. And on board, though it's a Starlink mission, there are two other satellites as well, two Blacksky sats. So they're launching 48 Starlink satellites, plus the dispenser that can carry the two black satellites. Starlink will be going into the fourth shell, which is stationed at a 540 kilometers circular low Earth orbit of 435, and then the initial orbit of 435 by 425, and we'll deploy out from there. But they'll get into that more as the stream progresses. The whole deployment of today's mission, a little bit of a rundown of what we're expecting there. We're expecting the Blacksky satellites to deploy just over an hour after liftoff, and the Starlinks about 90 minutes after liftoff. So a little bit of a longer deployment here, and we, of course, will be live through that time, answering your guys' live comments and questions. We have the drone ship, a short follow Gravitas, with Finn flag out and the support ship Bob, all stationed down range. Short follow Gravitas is located 620 kilometers down range, and Bob 665 kilometers, where it hopes to recover those two fairing halves. Both of the fairings are new, which is something we don't see all too often. And this is the 130th Falcon 9 launch, and the 75th reflight of a booster, and the 122nd orbital launch attempt of 2021. So take a moment in the chat. Let us know, how high do you think that number is going to be? We got a lot of launches coming up in December as we approach the holiday season. How high do you think that number will ultimately get here today? We got Jesse in Atlanta. Great to have you here. Frost in New Hampshire. Justin's in Mississippi. Kevin's in Savannah, Georgia. Great to have you all here. Efforts asking how many satellites per rocket. So on board the Starlink mission today, we have 48 Starlink satellites and 2 Blacksky satellites. So really great there. Normally we would see 60 Starlinks, but they had to make room for some of those Blacksky. Also, we've seen when they launched the first set into the fourth shell that it was a smaller amount as well. So they do have 8 different shells they're launching into. Though this is mission 4-3, It's actually only the second mission, so 4-2 will happen at some point here in the future. Mark is pointing out the Ugly Starbase shirt. If you guys would like to pick up one of your own Ugly Starbase shirts or some of our Hoppy Xmas or Deck the Halls with Rocket shirts, you can do so over on our Etsy shop. We do still have time for you to order and get in time for the holiday season if you're in Canada, US, and Europe. So take a moment and you can check out that stuff. We also have a bunch of stuff for the James Webb Space Telescope launch, which will arrive in time, as well as just general Starbase, SpaceX, and other stuff there. So take a moment, check out the shop, and maybe pick up something. All the profit of that will go to help support what we're doing here and make sure we can bring you the best possible coverage that we can. Kevin's saying the rocket's venting pretty hard. Are you down there, Kevin? Michael, Dad works at KSC, so I always have a place to stay when I have time to go. That's awesome, Michael, and I'm just jealous. Mark, watching from St. Andrews, Scotland, welcome. MG's in Gatineau, Quebec, hello. Elliot, launch that like button, there you go, you got it right. Hey, Russell, thanks for joining the Discord. Rocket Video, we're expecting to have live views here in just a couple of minutes as SpaceX begins their live stream, and we will have an update on the state of the rocket. Mission Control's been pretty quiet, so we're waiting to maybe hear some updates right as they begin the stream. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Trying to put stuff there. If I wouldn't wear it, or I don't know someone that would wear it, we try not to put it on. So, it's slightly out of sync. The audio is? Let us adjust that then. Let's see if we can adjust that. Microphone. Am I talking early or late? Let me know in the chat. We'll try to adjust this here quickly. It's only annoying when I'm full screen. When I'm in the corner, you probably won't notice. Hello from Ottawa. There we go. So SpaceX is live. So we're going to patch them in here. So I'm talking late, so I need to be a little earlier. We'll play around with it. Thanks for letting me know. Quiet count is a good count. You're spot on there, Mars. Absolutely. If it's your first time here, take a moment, hit that subscribe button. Really does help us out for it. And glad to have you all here with us. Just making some quick adjustments here. There we go. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to our live launch coverage of Starlink 4-3, launching 48 Starlink satellites into low Earth orbit and 2 Blacksky satellites. Booster 1060-9 carrying the payload today, landing on a shortfall of gravitas. SpaceX is just getting started here, so once they go through their intro, we'll patch them in and listen to updates from Mission Control as they count down to liftoff, currently scheduled for 13 minutes from now. First time here, take a moment, hit that subscribe button. It really does help us out. Let us know in the chat where you're watching from and share the broadcast and let people know that we are counting down the final 12 minutes until liftoff of another batch of Starlink satellites. There will be sound. Hey Vaughn, good to see you. South California in the house, great to have you. Hello from Portugal for Ricardo. Great to have you all here.
Good evening. It's Thursday, December 2nd, and you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 6:12 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. My name is Andy Tran. I'm a quality engineer here at SpaceX, joining you from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Thank you for tuning in for our 18th launch of Starlink this year and SpaceX's 27th mission of 2021. Starlink is a satellite internet constellation designed and manufactured by SpaceX that can provide high-speed, low-latency internet to people living in remote and rural locations around the globe. Today's launch will be our fourth rideshare mission of the year. This launch will be a longer one as we are reverting to a circular orbital insertion, which requires 2 burns of the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. We are doing this as it is a mission requirement for our rideshare customer flying on board tonight. Inside the fairing at the top of the rocket, there are 48 Starlink satellites and 2 Blacksky satellites. Blacksky is a global monitoring company that combines space assets with advanced AI and machine learning analysis to provide customers a first-to-know advantage. I'll share a few more details about these payloads a bit later in the webcast. As for the 48 Starlink satellites, they will be inserted into low Earth orbit and bring us one step closer to near global coverage of the populated world in 2021. The latest weather forecast shows about 90% favorable chance of liftoff today. The vehicle, the satellites, and range are all looking good to support an on-time liftoff just over 11 minutes from now. Let's take a closer look at the rocket that you see on screen. Falcon 9, our 2-stage launch vehicle, stands about 70 meters tall, and when it's fully fueled, it'll hold just over 1 million pounds of propellant that the vehicle will burn through in less than 3 minutes after liftoff. We prepped Falcon 9 for launch in our hangar at the base of the pad. Upon completing final checkouts, Falcon 9 rolled out to the pad with the Starlink and Blacksky payloads and went vertical on Monday around 5 p.m. Eastern Time. From there, we had successful static fire of our 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage yesterday. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is what we refer to as the first stage. You may be able to see the soot markings left over from this booster's previous 8 flights supporting the GPS 3 mission, Turksat 5A, Transporter 2, and 5 previous Starlink missions. The first stage accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space with the help of 9 Merlin engines at the base of the rocket. Following separation from the second stage, we'll be attempting to recover our first stage for a 9th time on our drone ship, a shortfall of Gravitas, staged off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. You can see it on screen right now. If successful, it will make the 89th recovery of a Falcon 9 first stage and 96 total first stage landings if you include our Falcon Heavy booster recoveries. On top of the first stage is the black carbon fiber inner stage, and then on top of that is the Falcon 9 second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine. Once the first and second stages separate at about 2.5 minutes into the mission, the MVAC engine will ignite and carry the Starlink satellites and 2 Blacksky satellites to a low Earth orbit around the Earth. The stack of satellites is safely enclosed inside of the 17-foot diameter payload fairing, which you see on screen right now. This protects the payload from aerothermal loads, heating, and contamination during ascent. Once we reach the vacuum of space, we will jettison the fairing as the second stage continues its journey to orbit. Just as we reuse the Falcon 9, we recover and reuse our fairing halves as well. The fairing halves we're using today are brand new, and we're going to be attempting to recover these halves using our recovery vessel, Bob. Propellants have been loading on the vehicle since the T-minus 35-minute mark. Falcon 9 is a bi-propellant vehicle, which means it uses 2 propellants.
Can we just appreciate that their ship is just Bob? Like, it's just great. It's just Bob. But they're going to go through a little bit more about the Falcon 9 here. Glad to have you all here. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat. We'll be answering those. As you can see on the ticker at the bottom of your screen, some major events coming up here. As engine chill will begin, then we'll see that strong back retract. And that does take a couple of minutes to retract. And we've learned from the Inspiration 4 crew that when that occurs, there is a little bit of a sway to the ship and the booster. We're going to keep listening into mission control as they count down T-minus 8 minutes and counting till liftoff.
Go, and for that we use the chemical T-tab, or triethylaluminum and triethylborane. Currently, fuel is nearly fully loaded on the first stage and starting to load on the second stage. Once all tanks are full, both stages will continue to be topped off with propellant until about the T-minus 2-minute mark to keep temperatures as cold as possible. Again, weather is looking fantastic for tonight's liftoff. The vehicle and satellites in the fairing, they are remaining good as well. We are targeting an on-time liftoff just under 7.5 minutes from now. And as I mentioned earlier, today's mission marks the 4th official mission under SpaceX's SmallSat rideshare program this year, which gives small satellites flexible access to what is now the most flown operational rocket in the United States, the Falcon 9. Tonight, we're flying 48 Starlink satellites to make room for 2 Blacksky payloads from our customer's spaceflight. In an effort to help Blacksky rapidly expand its growing constellation of high revisit satellites, Spaceflight Incorporated is managing the launch of these 2 additional Blacksky high-resolution multispectral Gen 2 satellites to low Earth orbit, expanding Blacksky's network in space and offering of real-time geospatial intelligence and monitoring services. Blacksky combines high-resolution images captured by its constellation of microsatellites with its proprietary artificial intelligence software to deliver analytics and insights to industries including transportation, infrastructure, land use, defense, supply chain management, and humanitarian aid. So far this year, we've launched over 200 rideshare payloads to orbit, and this includes the ones launched on the Transporter-1 mission in January, a previous Starlink launch in May, and the Transporter-2 mission in June. After this mission, our next rideshare mission is scheduled to launch at the beginning of next year, and that's going to be Transporter 3, which will be a dedicated rideshare launch to sun-synchronous orbit. As part of our SmallSat rideshare program, we offer 3 dedicated rideshare missions to sun-synchronous orbits per year, as well as launch opportunities on our Starlink missions like what you're seeing here today.
First, 6 cents. Thank you so much for that donation there. The thumbs up. I really appreciate that support and your new subscription. Thanks, Joe, for sharing it out. And Jin, thank you so much for that super chat there. $5. And this possibility changes how business comes to do things. Awesome. We'll check it out. Thank you so much for supporting us in that way, though. We really do appreciate that. If you're just joining us, welcome. We are T-minus 5 minutes, 20 seconds and counting until liftoff of Falcon 9 1060-9, carrying 48 Starlink satellites and 2 Blacksky sats into orbit. Just to give you an idea of what we're expecting for deployment time, we are expecting the first Blacksky satellite to deploy about an hour and 3 minutes after launch. The second, an hour, 6 minutes after launch, and then the Starlinks will all deploy about 90 minutes after launch. So we do have some time here, and we will be answering your guys' live comments and questions through that time. So as we count down, send in those questions, tag us at the launch pad, and we will work to answer those once we enter the coast phase. But let's listen in as we count down the last 4.5 minutes until liftoff.
And the vehicle is continuing to load propellant. Once we're fully topped off, we'll have over 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. On screen right now is a view of the fairing. Right beneath the fairing, those are the clamp arms that we are expecting to open up, and here they go. Once these clamp arms open up, we should start to see the truss structure begin to recline away from Falcon 9 in preparation for liftoff. So again, we are continuing to load propellant on both the stages. The first and second stages should finish loading propellant about a minute apart from one another. The first stage finishing up around the T-minus 3-minute mark, and the second stage finishing up around the T-minus 2-minute mark. At T-minus 60 seconds, Falcon 9 will be in startup. This means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. And just inside T-minus 2 seconds, we light the Merlin 1D engines, and then we're set for liftoff. The Starlink payload and the Blacksky payloads inside the fairing continue to be healthy. The Falcon 9 team is tracking no issues at this time. So we're starting to hear some hissing and popping. This is venting from our LOX lines as part of the transporter erector's job to continue to fill the vehicle with propellant. We can also start to see some white clouds forming around the Falcon 9. This will become more and more prominent as we get closer to T0. This is just that super cold liquid oxygen starting to densify and form those clouds that you start to see when it meets the warmer ambient air temperatures of Florida.
Really hear that rocket coming alive. They've got some great pad mics on Slick 40. If you're just joining us just in time, T-minus 2 minutes and counting till liftoff of 48
so again,
Starlink sats.
We have a pretty much perfect weather in Florida for today's liftoff attempt. This is a rideshare mission carrying 48 Starlink satellites as well as 2 Blacksky satellites enclosed in the fairing that you see on screen right now.
As always, here on the launch pad, we want to hear from you. Should we have a go, no go? Let's see it in the chat for the liftoff here at T-minus 90 seconds and counting.
Those hissing and popping, that is normal and expected at this stage in the countdown.
So now we're
At this
see
point,
a large
the
vent.
propellant has been fully loaded on the vehicle, and we are just under a minute away. Both stages should be
60
beginning to
seconds.
pressurize for liftoff.
Vehicle is in startup.
So we are 40 seconds away. Let's listen in to terminal count as we prepare for liftoff of the 48 Starlink satellites and the 2 Blacksky satellites.
T-minus 30 seconds and counting.
Here we go. Last 30 seconds. Smash that like button before we lift off here. 15 seconds.
T-minus 15 seconds and counting.
10, 9, 8.
T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
There she goes. Let's hold our breath. Maybe we'll see some twilight effect if we're lucky. A few minutes into flight.
Nominal power and telemetry.
So we are about a minute into liftoff. Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. In just a few seconds here, we are expecting the call out for max Q. That is the period where the vehicle will experience the highest amount of aerodynamic pressures.
Max Q.
And there was the call out. So now that we've gone past the period of highest stresses on the vehicle, we have 3 events happening in quick succession in about a minute. First, we have main engine cutoff, also referred to as MECO. Then stage separation, followed by second engine start 1, also known as SES1. Main engine cutoff is where all 9 Merlin engines on the first stage will shut down to slow the vehicle down in preparation for stage separation. During stage separation, the first and second stage will separate from one another. The first stage will make its way back to Earth for landing, while the second stage continues its journey with our satellites with the third event, which is second engine start 1. The single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will then ignite and continue to propel those Starlink satellites and Blacksky satellites into orbit.
Echo.
Stage separation confirmed.
So you can see on screen we had successful main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, and on the right-hand side of the screen, that is the single Merlin vacuum engine glowing red hot. On the left-hand side of the screen is the view of our first stage. I think we're getting some views of twilight right now as the sun has just set in the East Coast. In a few seconds, we are expecting fairing deploy, and that will expose the satellites to the vacuum of space.
Fairing separation confirmed.
We got the audio and video confirmation on the right-hand side of your screen. The fairing halves have deployed. We are going to attempt to recover those using our recovery vessel Bob later on in the mission. For now, the mission is going great. Again, the left-hand side is a view from the top of our first stage looking downward. You can see little plumes of gas coming out. That is nitrogen for our as part of our attitude control system to help orient the first stage booster properly as it makes its way back to attempt its 9th landing on our drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. Right-hand side is a view of the second stage Merlin vacuum engine, the 48 Starlink satellites, and the 2 Blacksky satellites that we had mentioned earlier.
Acquisition
they are
signal,
on the
Bermuda.
opposite end of that engine. And so again, they are going to be in this burn for another couple of minutes as they continue to make their way to low Earth orbit. So in order to make its way back to the drone ship, the first stage needs to execute 2 burns. The first is an entry burn where 3 of the Merlin 1D engines will ignite. This helps to slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. The second burn is the landing burn. This is a single engine burn, and this will bring the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on our drone ship.
Trajectory nominal.
That first burn, the entry burn, is expected to start around T plus 6 minutes and 22 seconds and last for about 20 seconds. For those that are just joining us, we are in the middle of SpaceX's 27th mission of 2021. Both stages have separated. We did have a successful liftoff from Space Launch Complex 40. Things are continuing to go well for tonight's mission.
So on the bottom right of your screen, you're seeing live telemetry of both the first and second stage and how their orbits are progressing. And of course, on the top left, we're seeing live views of that second stage burn. And soon we'll see that entry burn of the Falcon 9 booster, hopefully landing for the 9th time.
So we are about 20 seconds away from the beginning of that entry burn on the first stage. We do have camera views right now. It is a little dark, but as soon as that entry burn starts, we should see that first stage being lit up as it'll slow itself down before hitting the denser parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
Stage 1 interburn startup.
Drone flight termination system is safed.
All right, 3 engines have relit on the first stage. If you're keeping track, at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, there is a speedometer of sorts that is tracking the velocity of the first stage. You can see that we're starting to reduce that velocity.
Stage 1 interburn shutdown.
If you keep an eye on that, as soon as the first stage hits the denser parts of the atmosphere, we'll continue to slow down its speed in preparation for the next burn, the landing burn. And that landing burn is expected to happen a few seconds after the T plus 8 minute mark.
Trajectory nominal.
Holding our breath, hoping for another great landing here.
The MVAC engine performance on the second stage continues to go well. A few seconds after we complete the landing burn, we are expecting to turn off this engine and enter a coast phase. And as a reminder, we will be
Stage one is
reigniting this
transonic.
engine about 50 minutes from now.
Waiting for that landing burn to begin here. 2.5 kilometers, 2 kilometers in altitude, slowing down.
Stage one landing burn.
Landing burn start, 1
There's the
kilometer.
call out.
Come on, hold
the
the
landing
camera
burn has
feed.
begun.
Terminal guidance.
In just a few seconds here, we're going to see if we can land this first stage booster for the 9th time.
Stage one landing leg deploy.
You can hear the cheer and the
There
applause,
she
and there's
is.
the visual. This first stage booster has landed 9 times. This marks
Stage one
our
landing confirmed.
89th overall successful recovery of a Falcon 9 first stage, and the 129th successful
Stage 2
flight
termination system
of
has
a
saved.
Falcon 9 first stage. So what we're waiting on now is confirmation of second engine cutoff, as
Nominal
well as
orbit insertion.
confirmation of a good orbital insertion. As I was speaking, we did get that confirmation. So the second stage, with all of its satellites, are entering a coast phase for about 50 minutes. We're going to leave you with some space tunes, and we'll be back here at the T plus 59-minute mark.
And just like that, another one is in orbit. I would put my face cam on, but it seems a little frozen today, so we might put that on there. But if you're just joining us, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. It really does help us out and is totally free to do. We are on the road to 15K by the end of the year. Glad to have you all here. That was the 27th launch for SpaceX of 2021, and I would say it was a successful one. And they are now on their way to their deployment orbits. First deployment expected 50 minutes from now, so we're going to take some time and answer your live comments and questions. I'm glad to send those in. So if you have questions, send them in the chat. We'll be answering those live. You can just tag us at the launch pad, and we'll make sure that we are able to answer those. The C1, the stream for Ariane Space, they should be rescheduled for tomorrow. It should be updated for that, but I'll double check that here. Thanks for calling that out. Yeah, unfortunately they did have a delay there, Heather, for just due to something with a downrange ship. So we'll have to see what happens. Yeah, they had the camera without blocking out. Yeah, they've had some smooth days, but it all depends on just the conditions of the waves and everything there. Tobin, there were 48 Starlinks on board and 2 Blacksky satellites. If you are under the path and it's in the evening, take a look up. You may be able to see the second stage with its payload flying overhead. It's over the ocean now, passing just northeast of Canada. But will be coming up over Europe as it normally does.
Expected loss of signal, Bermuda.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad and our live coverage of the launch of Starlink 4-3. We're currently in a coast phase towards deployment. You can see now on your screen those upcoming deployment times and when we are expecting those to occur within a few seconds. We're hanging out answering your guys' live comments and questions, though, and I see a couple coming in there. Heather, are there any orbital cleanup projects in the works to help clean up the space junk? There are some companies that have expressed interest in it, but there are no major projects that are currently underway at this time. Thanks for being here, Annie. Glad to see that you can see it. Sixth Sense, have a great day. Thanks for jumping in. Appreciate you being in here. John, what's heavier? A ton of lock. They're both a ton, so they'd be the same. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. CT. Were you able to see it in person, Jason? That's awesome. And it'd be cool if they sent up a rocket to intercept the comet, which is on its way, but I'm sure the velocity is too... Which comet were you talking about, Annie? We did just send out the first ever asteroid redeployment test, DART, so we do have quite a bit of technology now that we are testing. For an asteroid, not a comet. Which one, Andy? I'm curious which one you're thinking of. Jason, lights going towards the near. The camera changed, but I have to... yep. NASA sent to comments before. Yep. If you guys have a question, you can send those in the chat. Just tag us at the launch pad. We'll keep answering those live as the coast phase continues. The first payload deployment of the first of the two Blacksky satellites expected at 1:03 T plus 1 hour 3 minutes into flight. So we do have about 40 minutes from now. So keep sending in those questions. We'll be answering them in the chat, but stay with us for those deployments right here on the launch pad. We want to give a shout out to Marcus for sending in a launch streak photo from down in Florida. Really awesome to see there. If you're in the Discord, jump over to share your stuff and you can see it in its full high quality there. But you can see that first stage, the second stage, and even on the Discord, it looks like you can see the entry burn as well. So really awesome view there. You can really see how it lights up the sky during a flight. So thanks for sending that in, Marcus. If you guys saw the launch and have photo or video of it and want a chance to maybe be featured, send it over in on Discord and share your stuff, and we'll try to pull it up and share it with our crew there. Keep sending in your guys' live comments and questions. We are halfway to that first deployment, another 30 minutes, so stay with us right here on the launch pad.
Welcome back. If you are just joining us, a quick recap of today's mission. We had successful
Acquisition
liftoff
of signal,
from Cape
Tasmania.
Canaveral Space Force Station at 6:12 p.m. Eastern Time. We then had successful stage separation, recovered our first stage after its 9th flight on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas, and had a successful second stage MVAC engine burn. We're now waiting on the second relight of the second stage, Merlin vacuum engine, and this burn should last just a few seconds.
MVAC ignition. Deco 2.
So we just saw that very, very short clip there. The Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage ignited for a few seconds. Then we also got confirmation of a good second engine cutoff. So we are waiting on confirmation of a good orbit on the second stage. We are
Nominal orbit insertion.
a few minutes away from the first payload deploy, and we did hear the confirmation of good orbital insertion. That was a spectacular shot of the second stage with the Earth in the background. What the second stage does at deployment is actually largely determined by customer requirements and make sure that the payloads don't run into each other. For this particular mission, we have 2 rideshare payloads in addition to the Starlink satellite stack. The rideshare payloads are deployed while the stage is not spinning. Here they are on screen. By contrast, the Starlink stack is always deployed while spinning. Will actually spin at a rate at about 3 degrees per second. This creates a small difference in velocity between the individual Starlink satellites, allowing them to separate over time. So again, we are about 2.5 minutes away from the first Blacksky satellite from deploying. Again, we do have 2 of them on board today, and they will be deploying about 3 minutes apart from one another. And this shot right here, you can start to see the Starlink stacks. Some interesting notes about the Starlink. Each of those satellites are about 500 pounds. When we deploy them, we'll deploy them into low Earth orbit, but then over the next couple of days and weeks, they'll actually fire their onboard thrusters to get to their final operational orbit. The Starlink satellites operate at about 550 kilometers in altitude, and by contrast, the International Space Station is orbiting the Earth at about 400 kilometers. So the Starlink stacks are operating a little bit higher than the International Space Station. So again, we are waiting on the first deployment of the Blacksky satellite. It's going to happen about a minute from now. It is the first of 3 payload deployments. Our first and second payloads are about 3 minutes apart. Blacksky is a global monitoring company that combines space assets with advanced AI and machine learning analysis to provide customers a first-to-know advantage. For now, as we wait, we are enjoying some awesome views of the second stage, space, and the Earth. And as we continue to orbit around the Earth, we are trying to connect to ground stations here on the floor, and so we'll periodically lose some signals, but you can see that we're trying to get the signals back and the video footage back as much as possible as we hopefully can see the Blacksky satellites deploying from the top of the second stage.
Global 12 payload deploy confirmed.
So we did get audio confirmation. I am looking on screen right now to see if we can see it visually. Again, the two Blacksky satellites are actually positioned at the top of the stack, and so the objects, if you will, that are closest to the screen, those are the Starlink satellites. So we didn't quite get the visual confirmation of the first satellite. Maybe we'll get the second one, but again, we are about 3 minutes away from the second deployment of the Blacksky satellite. That one interesting thing to note as we continue to get this view here is in space and maybe without a point of reference, things seem to look very, very stagnant. If you look at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, we are actually traveling at 26,000 kilometers an hour around the Earth. And this is really this is close to orbital velocity, but at those speeds, you could pretty much travel end to end from America in about 10 minutes. So even though it doesn't look like we're moving very, very quickly, the second stage and the satellites are indeed zipping around the Earth. So right now, the second stage is actually just a little bit south and east of Australia. It's continuing to head east. And we are about a minute away from the second Blacksky satellite deployment. For those that are just joining, we did have successful deployment of our first Blacksky satellite. This is the fourth rideshare mission of 2021 for us here at SpaceX, and the 27th mission overall. Just about 15 seconds away from our expected deployment of the second and final Blacksky satellite.
Global 13, payload deploy confirmed.
And that is great news. We've now successfully deployed the two Blacksky satellites on behalf of our customer spaceflight. We are wishing them bon voyage to the two Blacksky sats, and it was our pleasure to give you a lift today. With that, we are awaiting the deployment of our 48 Starlink satellites, which is scheduled to occur about 20 minutes from now. At the time of the deployment, we won't actually have ground station coverage, but we'll return just before we acquire signal to the South Texas station about T+1 hour and 32 minutes to get confirmation of that deployment. We will see you back here in just a few moments.
signal, South Texas.
Welcome back one final time. If you're just joining us, we had a successful liftoff at 6:12 p.m. Eastern Time. We saw a successful stage separation. We saw second engine start and second engine cutoff successfully twice on the second stage. We were also able to land our first stage booster for the 9th time on our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas. And then about 20 minutes ago, we successfully deployed the 2 Blacksky satellites. We were expecting the Starlink satellites to deploy around the T+1 hour and 29-minute mark. And at that time, we didn't have ground station coverage. So right now, we should be coming in the range of South Texas ground station and getting confirmation of the Starlink satellites deploying. So I am hearing that we did indeed get confirmation of those 48 Starlink satellites deploying. That is the 34th launch of Starlink to date, which means that we've launched nearly 2,000 Starlink satellites thus far. With that said, all of the payloads on today's mission have reached their intended orbit.
And thank you guys for being here. That is going to wrap it up for us here this evening. The launch of Starlink 4-3 complete. If you are new, take a moment, hit that subscribe button. We'll be live tomorrow for hopefully the launch of Ariane's Soyuz mission and lots of other missions coming up. Over 10 already on the docket for this month as we count down to the holiday season. But if you are new, subscribe. Let us know how you enjoyed today's coverage. And that is going to do it for us here this evening. Take a moment, join the Discord if you haven't. We're hanging out over in the live comms. But that is going to do it for myself here tonight. This is Zach with the Launchpad, signing off. We'll see you next time.